A friend.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, broadcasting from a rather hazy Detroit area thanks to Canadian wildfires. So we place tariffs, they send us wildfire haze. There must be some symmetry to that process. But another busy week, not only here in the D, but also in our country and even internationally. So let's get started. We have, after a bit of a hiatus, welcome back attorney Mike Rataj.
Yay.
We have Bill Sklar, also an attorney. Two of our other regulars, Bill Cycli and Steve Cushman, will not be attending. They are actually at a funeral for a friend. There's an Elton John reference in there somewhere. Barb Ingalls, who's also a labor and community activist, public relations specialist Beverly Watts, and Free Press investigative columnist Elrick. Welcome back, and broadcasting not from a car.
Yes, from an undisclosed location.
And of course, joined as always with our co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. So I don't know if this is the most audacious self-destruction when it comes to a professional career, but the University of Florida Board of Governors rejected former University of Michigan President Santa Ono's bid, which seemed, as with the movie with John Cusack and Daphne Zuniga from '85, a sure thing. What happened here? It seemed as though this was just really going to be a formality. Allan.
I think a lot of people didn't see it coming because the university had unanimously approved his appointment and offered him a contract, a more lucrative contract than he made there. But there was a whole thing going on with, including Donald Trump Jr., who called him like a psycho, woke, whatever. You had Ron DeSantis, who said, I have concerns about his, wokeness and all that, but I'm not going to get involved. Of course, the Board of Governors, there's 17 of them, probably 14 were appointed by him. So, all these conservatives in the state were raising issues about DEI, about the encampments at University of Michigan, pro-Palestinian encampments and stuff. And they were basically like, there's no fucking way we're approving you. And I think it went down. I can't remember. The vote was like 10
It was like 14 to 2. I mean, it was, or 6 to 2. It was something fairly lopsided.
Yeah. So I think nobody saw that coming. It seemed like everyone's shocked, like, oh my God, he didn't get it. But if we paid attention to really what was going on in the state, it was pretty clear he was going to get sabotaged. So,
do you think that sort of a redo of former DC Mayor Marion Barry, was he set up?
I think it's funny. I mean, he suddenly, as he was departing U of M, he was like, "Oh, DEI is a bad thing. I didn't realize how bad it was," and it didn't matter. They were like, "You are a DEI guy, and you are woke, and screw you. We're not."
Nancy.
I'm wondering if I want to ask you, Saeed, because you're in higher ed and you probably know this better than I do, but Florida has an unusual system where they have boards for the individual schools. Like the University of Florida board said, this is our guy. But then there's this overarching board that oversees the whole state called the Board of Governors. Is that something that other states have? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why do you need two boards to approve him?
Are you setting me up for something here, Nancy, by making me?
No, because I feel like, and I read in on a social media post, which is worthless, That this is some kind of way to kind of, how Republicans are always like, we need to make higher education more, enmeshed with the business community, i.e., let's turn college into trade school, basically. Yeah. And so we need to have, these boards of governors to make sure that we're not having too much, why do we have duplicate journalism programs? For instance, if you want to go into journalism, you need to go to this school. If you want to, so I'm just wondering if that's what part of what is going on here. Because
from my understanding, Florida seems to be a unique case. I mean, remember, this is the state where basically the Koch brothers, if I'm not mistaken, came in and bought the economics department at Florida State University.
Right. So and they also, and Christopher Rufo came in and bought New College, which was from what I understand, a great little school, which was very appealing to kids who were just a little out of step with their peers, shall we say. They didn't want to go to a party school like Gainesville, but they wanted to go to a smaller, supportive, weirdo friendly kind of place. And Christopher Rufo came in and basically ruined it. He tried to, he instituted a sports program. Christopher Rufo is, of course, a far-right psychopath who's been very active in this movement to demonize higher ed. And, I realize that because college costs so much that a lot of people do kind of think of it as trade school. And so you get all these snarky comments about how, well, of course you don't have a job. You majored in gender studies. When college ideally is a place where you learn to think and to kind of come into yourself, that bridge between the, legal end of adulthood and the true end of adulthood should be college, to my mind anyway. And
I think the irony is that back in the day when these colleges were really the exclusive preserve for the very wealthy and the elite, prep schools then prepared students for such equally important education as they decry with gender studies as Latin and
right, exactly,
and Greek and the so-called classics. I mean, which I don't know how that helps with a job on Wall Street or
right,
or at a white shoe.
Let me ask Mike and Joel, you're lawyers. What were your undergrad majors?
Mine was political science and psychology.
Okay, and what was yours, Mike?
Corporate finance, which of course I remember nothing from.
Okay, yeah. I mean, lawyers and lawyers in particular, I know are famous. The lawyers I've known anyway are famous for having majored in history or economics or some softer English. I have a good friend who's like a business whiz who was an English major. And, that's one of the majors that every one of these guys likes to shit all over because, they think it's completely unimportant. But, he says, my friend that majored in English says, learning how to break down and analyze a novel and a poem, that taught me problem solving. And it's a skill that I call upon every single day in my life in business. And so I feel like this board of governors was kind of like laying in wait to destroy Santa Ono, although he really couldn't have played it any worse than he did. I mean, to essentially say, see you later, Ann Arbor, and then jump out of the plane and find out that his parachute isn't working.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, that's the end of my rant.
Yeah, I think he didn't read the tea leaves well. I mean, I stated before that I didn't like the way he handled it on his exit, from U of M and the DEI and how he came out with it and just how he is a leader, folded so quickly. And so then I think he just miscounted. This is an administration who's going to flex at every level, especially involvement in universities and their power, and doesn't matter. I think it's true when they say they have a unit to just go back and look at what your social media all the way back for 10 years, what you stand on. So I think he was a flip-flopper, and I think he thought he had it done and it was signed and sealed, and then he got in the crutch of the flexers now, and I think that's just what happened. I think there's a lot.
So, but ML, the question I have for you, and first of all, are you getting your blood pressure checked on both arms, or you have your sleeves still rolled up?
I'm waiting for Barb Ingalls to say something shitty about the media, then I'm going. In 3, 2, 1.
So the question I have for you, ML, is this mean that Santa yokoed himself?
Oh, ha 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 ha!
Yeah. You know, when you stand for nothing, you get nothing. So he got exactly what he deserves.
Yep.
But at the same time, I mean, it seems as though, and okay, I'll give you a personal anecdote. I actually met with him as part of a group around the time of maybe about a year ago regarding the whole idea about the encampments and all. And I found him and what was the word that you used, Beverly? You said he was a flip-flopper?
Flip-flopper. Didn't know
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he's kind of an unctuous guy. And the first thing that he tells us is, hey, you got to help me save my job, because if I'm here, I can help you make your kids feel safe on campus in case they're getting doxxed and all of this, but you've got to help me out. And this was in the light of him getting subpoenaed to testify in front of Congress, which he was really scared about, because if you remember back then, he was still on like a 1 year left on his contract. So it was just interesting to see how he was playing the group to try to then basically keep his job and to back off with anything too strident. So from a personal experience with him, yeah, I don't think that he was liked by anybody. Nancy.
I already kind of said my piece on this issue, but I just want to add one thing. If there's one takeaway that we all should have from this particular episode, it's you can never grovel enough for these psychopaths these MAGA psychopaths. It's like, it doesn't matter how you prostrate yourself, how you claim that you don't believe what you believed last week, they will eat your lunch. And so don't even try, and don't do it. I mean, stand up to them at every chance you can, because it's not groveling isn't going to do any good. Excuse me, what?
I said, I wish the big law firms felt that way.
Yeah, I know. I think they're going to learn their lesson in their own way. So
what happens to Ono in this, though? What happens to him? Does Ono, is he no longer employable? Is he employable at a very small school someplace? I mean, what happened? I'm curious to know what this rejection does to him.
DPS is hiring. DPS is hiring.
He came here from British Columbia, right? He was teaching in Canada. I think he'll end up back north of the border somewhere.
I think these presidents are like NBA coaches. They just get recycled, show up at another team down the road. I don't think it's the end of his career. He'll just have to, maybe, as Donald Trump said, Jr. said, maybe he should be getting a job at a communist university in California. Maybe.
But at the same time, Alan, I mean, here you're going from one of the most prestigious public universities in the country, making a lateral to another public university, which, from my understanding, is the first time a U of M president had ever done that. I think Lee Bollinger went to Columbia, for example. That there's just the privates and the Ivy Leagues from there. And here you've got somebody now who's been rejected by a place like the University of Florida. And you've got some pretty prestigious universities in Canada like UBC and Toronto and McGill. I mean, has he kind of become radioactive?
I would think he would. I mean, isn't his reputation totally tarnished? He turned his back on U of M.
Right.
Was ungracious about it. And then he got his ass kicked in Florida. I mean, he's a loser.
Right.
To use Trump's term, who the hell wants him? So
it's going to be difficult with another prestigious school here in our country, because, again, you go to that fear factor. They don't want to become a target of this administration.
He's not going to make $3 million a year. I mean, I think he'll land on his feet somewhere, but not with quite a soft.
Well, Alan, I just have to ask this question. Which, I mean, call it a bit self-preservational. By any chance, he didn't apply for my job here, did he?
qualified for your job here.
Yeah.
He could never.
Don't you worry.
That altitude in Istanbul, got me a little paranoid. But
we have standards on this show.
Well, if the honeymoon is over for Santa Ono, then the honeymoon seems to really be over for a couple of other people here. Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And I think we've got some videos about this.
We have multiple videos here.
To a new report, Elon Musk had asked the Trump administration to allow him to keep working as a special government employee beyond the 130-day legal time limit. but the White House told him it wasn't possible. That's how you know they hate him. They actually followed a rule. Our hands are tied, Elon. A rule's a rule.
Trump escalated by threatening Musk. The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised Biden didn't do it. To which Elon Musk replied, "Go ahead, make my day." Oh, you two bitches have already made mine. Elon gave us a fun one. Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Oh, damn! Trump's gonna have to get one of those bumper stickers for his Tesla that says, "I bought this before Elon told everyone I was on Epstein's plane."
So apparently Tesla stock is down 14%, and probably by no coincidence, the price of Jiffy Pop stock is up 10%, because I think a lot of people are sitting around enjoying this shit show. Barb, I think you were talking earlier about your view on this little tiff that's happening.
You know, it really is, it's good TV. You know, it's really wonderful to hear. It's terrifying that what's going on underneath while this is happening, but I believe that we should sit back and enjoy it while it's happening. And keep in mind that they're busy dismantling the rest of the country while we're doing it. But who didn't see this coming? Two complete narcissists in the same room.
Not just narcissists, but pathological sociopathic narcissists.
Exactly.
I mean, these guys are of the same ilk, the same cloth. They're not opposites, and so they're going to. This is going to be an interesting fight to see in real time. I mean, it's been fascinating so far. I love what I see. Is it just what it means to the government is that you have, Musk, who's wielded incredible authority, who's now just gone, and Trump clearly had no idea what Musk was doing. Didn't give a shit what Musk was doing. All of this, all the kabuki theater is we're seeing what's really going on. That this administration is lost. That those who they rely upon are also lost. That there's always antagonism, always discordance, and that is just going to keep playing for the next 3.5 years. I mean, it's just the hole's going to get deeper, and they're going to keep digging. So,
ML, one of our viewers, Faris Khan, no relation, has been asking the question: are we being hoodwinked after Tesla stock is back up a little bit?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
Could be distracting.
That's what I was going to say really quick is that maybe I'm just a forever skeptic. I just don't believe it. I think this is a reality TV script that they're doing while they're doing other stuff, being a distraction. So maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe it. I don't know.
For Musk to lose 14%, I mean that is horrific. And and you hope it keeps going. I'd love to see him go bankrupt. Everything that Trump touches typically dies. So I'd like to see that go. He's an infectious disease.
I mean, I think it's a distraction of the country, but when you have these toxic personalities, it's eventually going to happen. I mean, Steve Bannon, was nibbling at Elon Musk's heels, trying to get him out of there. It's a shit show. And I mean, Trump is just, they say narcissists really thrive on chaos. They create chaos because they control the environment, and then they can kind of bring it back and then create, more chaos and stuff like that. I mean, it's the way he operates. And it's like, a couple who's married and gets divorced, and then 2 years later says, we should get back together. Maybe it wasn't so bad. And then you're like, wait a minute. Now I remember why we got divorced.
You know who's really worried right now is all these white South Africans waiting to get on a plane to come to the United States. They may find themselves in El Salvador with a change in itinerary once they take off from Joburg.
That's possible. You're right. Trump could be that vindictive.
We're taking you to South Sudan with the Palestinians.
Well, clearly South Africa didn't make the travel ban list like 12 to 19 other countries did recently. But I mean, this whole idea about the optics, there's some reporting that the person who's actually quite happy about this is Peter Thiel, another tech billionaire bro who's sliding in a new form of a deep state with Musk and Trump distracted. At the same time, there's also the idea that could this possibly be a poll that's going on testing the loyalties of Republicans, particularly when it comes to the BBB, the big beautiful bill that's going through, to see and to test the waters as to who's loyal to Trump and who's loyal to Musk.
I've been wondering about Peter Thiel. When does he jump off the Trump train now that they're renaming the USS Harvey Milk, where now that it seems like this attack on DEI and anybody who's not a cisgender male, when is he going to say, oh, they like my money, but they don't like me? Maybe it's time for me to find somebody who accepts me for who I am.
Okay, so that brings us a really good point. So Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has announced that the naval ship, the USNS Harvey Milk, this, of course, in the midst of June being Pride Month, will be renamed, along with apparently a few other naval vessels in the pursuit of dismantling DEI, including ships that have been named after Rosa Parks and also former Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And if you remember, Harriet Tubman. And you saw, of course, that the DOD had done something similar like this when they scrubbed their website of Jackie Robinson and other people of color. Do you think, ML, that Thiel cares, or is he just sort of immune to this kind of rhetoric going on? Because the chances of him facing discrimination or violent attack, as some people in the LGBTQ community might, is probably pretty low.
Well, I think people pick their identity based on the situation. Like when the Irish are in trouble, I'm mostly Hungarian, okay? And I think the way he feels is all the other shit doesn't matter because I'm mostly billionaire. But what I thought was interesting is after they announced the changing of the name of the Harvey Milk, they asked the defense secretary, is this the last one? He said, I'll have another. And they said, another ship. He's like, no, another drink.
Well,
and
I made it through. I made it through
another. And then I'll bang that chick at the end of the bar who's married and a Christian.
Whether she likes it or not.
Yeah. But nothing to see here.
All I know is it took me 15 seconds to get through passport control on the way back from Istanbul last week, and being host of Deadline Detroit serves as the best immunizer ever. So
by the way, is Jeffrey Goldberg on this call? Do we have Jeffrey Goldberg on this call? Is that okay?
So while I was overseas, the big news that was happening on the other side of the Black Sea. And by the way, I actually went stuck my foot in the Black Sea. I was thinking about swimming, except the amount of plastic that had washed ashore was awful. The jellyfish that I saw also kind of kept me beyond ankle length. But across the Black Sea, there was, of course, the still raging Ukraine-Russia conflict, and a Ukrainian drone strike apparently took out about 1/3 of Russia's strategic bomber fleet in places like Murmansk and Irkutsk. And for any of you who don't play Risk, shame on you, because you know exactly where Irkutsk is.
I know where Irkutsk is.
But this was just absolutely devastating in its scope and scale.
It was audacious.
It was audacious.
Yes, let's give him his propers on this. So yeah.
So, given the fact that Trump apparently is like this with Putin, and every now and then they have their little skirmishes, what does it say about America's ability, or at least this administration's ability, to kind of de-escalate the situation? Because it looks like Zelensky and Ukraine have pretty much moved past even bothering to seek American military aid or even Trump's intervention to try to bring about a ceasefire.
Trump would have gone on TV right away.
The Ukrainians are showing us how the next war is going to be fought, and so all this, every minute that Pete Hegseth, worries about whether or an obscure naval vessel is named for a gay man that he doesn't like. Who P.S. probably saw more action than Pete Hegseth ever did.
What kind of action, Nancy?
Well, he was in the Navy, but in the Navy. Anyway, it shows you what the next war is going to be, because some of these drones I was reading cost as little as $600. I mean, it's all in the video game back in Kyiv or wherever they have their control center.
This is like an asymmetric war, you know, and what you're seeing is you don't need Americamite. You don't need huge bombs. You can go on the war for cheap,
right?
By using drones and technology. And what I think it's emphasizing is if Trump wants to make us smaller, this is showing that we are. If he wants to show the world that we're weaker, we are weaker. We don't have the control that we have over other nations because we're not trustworthy. Nobody can rely on us. We lie all the fucking time. Trump is mercurial. Don't know what he's going to do tomorrow.
And is there any doubt in your mind, Joel, that Zelensky did not tell Trump that this was going to happen? I mean, because he would have ratted out his good friend.
Are we out of the Five Eyes? I mean, aren't we out of the five? I mean, nobody's telling us shit, and nobody should. We're not
exactly.
We're not. You know, we got loose lips sink ships. We're going to sink a hell of a lot of ships. So no, people, we're out of the loop. We are every day that Trump's in office, we are one day less safe.
Right.
And the shit's going to hit the fan. And it's going to be concrete. It's going to be real. And all this theoretical bullshit is going to go away. And we're going to be sitting in a mountain of shit.
Yes. And you know, for those of you who don't know where Irkutsk is, it's in Siberia, which means that these drones were able to cross a lot of land without being detected.
And Murmansk is way in the north of Russia, so it went all the way across Russian territory
and Murmansk too, as well. I mean, Irkutsk,
they were brought in by trucks.
They were brought in by trucks, and then they
lifted up the top of the
almost
trucks.
like the walkie-talkie.
Right. I'm curious, Mike. How do you, being a military man, how do you read this whole?
I agree with what everybody said. Zelensky's not telling Trump what he's doing. That's number one, and he's showing tremendous leadership, and he's showing a lot of balls. And so I give the guy, 5 stars. I mean, tremendous leadership. And keep hitting Putin the Russian army's got to be totally depleted at this point in time.
They are.
I mean, they're getting their ass kicked on so many different levels. So, and the way that the Russians operate, when I was in the Marine Corps, we were taught just kill the officers because the NCOs have no idea what to do once you kill their officers, and the Russians are showing complete lack of leadership on the battlefield. Once you got officers running away from the fights, for heaven's sakes, and these poor guys are left to fend for themselves, and they have no idea what to do, and they're getting slaughtered. So it's good to see.
And they're bringing they're bringing in North Korean mercenaries who are getting addicted to porn, and they're not fighting either.
No, they're just whacking off.
Their hands are full.
About a year ago, they said that it's very strange to walk around Moscow these days because it's like a city without men. There are men there in Moscow, obviously, but they're hiding because they don't do conscription the way the Americans do, where they send you a letter that says greetings and ask you to report to your selective service office. They just knock on the door and they say, "You're in the army now," but Vladimir or whoever. And so they're hiding, and their girlfriends.
Nancy, not everybody in Russia is named Vladimir.
I know.
I'm just saying. There is the occasional Boris.
Igor.
Boris, Ivan, yeah.
So one name that's generally sort of out of the foreign policy news when it comes to kind of a military showdown is China. Although right now there's quite a bit of back and forth between President Trump and apparently Xi Jinping on the tariff issue. So I guess the other question is Tuesday's no longer the only taco day in America, right? Every day's taco day. But a University of Michigan scholar of Chinese heritage, Yongqing Jian, and her boyfriend Junyang Liu were both stopped at Metro Airport, charged with smuggling a biohazard, apparently fungus, at the airport, and they have both now been charged and indicted accordingly. I only brought back this fountain pen from Turkey. That and being host of Dead
What's in the ink? What's in the ink?
What's in the ink chamber?
Your little camera pen.
Actually, funny you mentioned it, Beverly. I bought a very nice purple ink while I was there. I didn't even bring back any Turkish delight. I mean, that's how lame I am. But this idea of going after scholars, there was a similar situation, I think, on the East Coast in Massachusetts, where a Chinese scholar was detained for bringing back what seemed to be already pre-authorized material. Is this just a low-level Cold War and the kind of things that we're going to see between Chinese nationals and America to make America less attractive for Chinese researchers?
Harassment, you mean? Just
yeah.
I mean, there's a chilling effect from all this.
I think of a chilling effect. I mean, it's interesting that she was given, the woman who's the scholar here, had been doing research in China. She came to the University of Michigan, which maybe they have more advanced, they have a better laboratory here or something. And then her boyfriend was bringing in the fungus. He was the fungus man, and I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I don't
either.
You know, it's important.
You have sandals on?
Hey, Rat, Mike, what do you think? I mean, do you know anything about this? You know, is anybody but
no, just what I read in the paper. I mean, I don't. I mean, maybe somebody can educate me. Is this stuff that they found on these people dangerous? I don't know.
It is.
Supposedly,
they say it's dangerous.
It's a crop fungus.
Potentially.
And,
but they say it can not only harm like massive crops, but it can also do damage to organs and human organs and livestock.
Yeah.
So I guess it's scary when you think about all these labs all around the world, including, you know, Jeff Sachs, who's a famous economist. He's claiming that the COVID virus came in from a lab in North Carolina. So, you know, we have in Maryland, we have the U.S. Army labs up there who've been working with anthrax forever. There's a lot of dangerous shit happening in these labs that we don't know about.
Right. And then there's also just weather. I mean, soybean rust, I think it's some kind of blight on soybean crops, basically came up from South America on a hurricane. It was just, you know, there was a lot of really windy weather in Central America, and it just kind of brought it all across. Of course, why are they growing soybeans in South America to begin with? Because we've globalized agriculture. But okay.
Well, Nancy, I'm just now recovering from my bout of long Dutch elm disease. So why do we go to a commercial now?
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Okay, speaking of whether our esteemed attorneys are getting these particular cases, it looks like a Republican state representative is looking to introduce articles of impeachment against Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. James DeSana has accused her of abuse of power, repeatedly abusing power, corrupt conduct, and constitutional violations. Is this going to stick, or is this just because it looks like she's running for governor next year?
It's just politics.
Right.
I don't think it's going anywhere. It's nothing but politics from those maggots in Lansing. I don't use MAGA. I call them maggots. So that's, I mean, it's just politics. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah.
But I mean, we saw this a couple weeks ago when U.S. Congressman Sri Thanedar was looking to introduce articles of impeachment against President Trump at the U.S. Congress. And it looks like somebody within the leadership in Washington, or at least in the Democratic leadership, said this is a really stupid idea, and he backed off. Is DeSana's strategy, I mean, I'm sure he must have consulted with other state legislators, Republican. Is this an anomaly, or do you think that this is something that's more reflective of the Michigan Republican Party?
The latter. The latter, no question. I was closer to it than any. I mean, reporters. He knows more than I do. But if looking at it from my perspective, it's just politics. It's just maggot politics. That's all it is.
Emil, have you heard anything about it?
I mean, I heard that she's being sued, but when I think about election shenanigans that should be explored more thoroughly, I'm waiting for somebody to, other than the Attorney General, to say they have a problem with the fake Trump electors. I'm waiting for someone to go after Darleaf, the sheriff up north, who thinks that elections were stolen. I'm waiting for someone to speak out about these clerks who have been trying to share confidential voting machine information. Now, nobody in the state GOP seems to have a problem with them. Coincidentally, they're all Republicans. But I like the good old days when somebody did something wrong and you went after them, and then you asked what party they belonged to afterwards. But it seems like the people, check the color and then they decide what they're going to do. And that's, I had one of these public officials complain to me a while ago that, the stories that you do undermine faith in government. I'm like, well, actually, I think it's what you do that undermines faith in government.
Yeah.
Because you say you're going to do something and you don't. You say that you're cracking down on something and you give somebody a pass. You say that I just saw the speaker the other week in Mackinac, the new Speaker of the House, saying, hey, this is a new day in the legislature. We're going to work across the aisle. We're going to be bipartisan. As long as, Governor Whitmer stops being a feckless Democrat, and as soon as these lousy Democrats in the Senate will come to work. I'm like, well, brother, aren't you the guy who wouldn't come to work in December? And didn't you just say you want to be bipartisan and build a bridge to the other party, and then you shit all over? I'm like, I got to tell you, I didn't read that book about how to win friends and influence people, but I don't think there's a chapter that says you do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Very true.
Right.
Any Dale Carnegie readers here that might refute that? No? Okay.
No, I refute that. I totally agree with him. I mean, when you think about, it's just y'all general statements, no specifics. I think this is shenanigans. And unfortunately now when you say impeaching what they're going to do and filing charges, is coming too often, too common. And it's falling on deaf ears unless you have something concrete. So right now I'm looking into it, but it's just looked like general statements. I think it's shenanigans, early shenanigans.
Impeachment used to be, now it's kind of like, well, we can do it, so we'll do it.
Well, doesn't Marjorie Taylor Greene file impeachment? Wasn't she filing impeachment papers against Biden
have the same
every
meaning.
other week? I mean,
there used to be a time when more people had walked on the moon than had been impeached, and now it seems like in the last 5 years that's flipped. But Beverly, I mean, don't you think that this is yet another fundraising bonanza?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No. Joe, you're absolutely right. Everything is it comes back to money and to slow someone down. It's shenanigans. It's all who is supporting who and who is meeting in the the little coffee shop in the basement, and let's come up with a strategy now. So now you have everyone scrambling. Always just red and blue, real popular. Be popular to say purple. So you have all these scramblers, and everyone's coming up with their own facet. But absolutely, it's about money. And let's get a fundraising thing going, because let's try to take down this Secretary of State who says she's going to run for governor. I say she's the flavor of the week, and we're going to have more flavors as the week go by with individuals.
Oh, boy. Well, one of the people who's running for governor is current mayor of Detroit, Mike Duggan, and a new poll shows that there's a clear front runner in the mayoral race to replace him. And that seems to be Mary Sheffield, who is holding a commanding 38.4% in a recent poll. The next closest is at 9.1%. Is this a race? Oh, that's James Craig, by the way. Is this race pretty much done? Emma, what are you seeing there?
Well, so the race is really for second place, and you saw some of that in the mayoral debate on Mackinac Island, where somebody like Fred Durhal, who needs to make the runoff because it's nonpartisan, so the top two will advance. So a guy like Fred Durhal, who needs to make the runoff, knows he can't catch up with Mary Sheffield, so it's like, let me try and bring down Solomon Kinloch, who I think most people think is the favorite to finish second. But this race is far from over. There's another 2 months before the primary. We haven't seen that much of the candidates. I think Kinloch figures he's a lock for the runoff, so he's kind of laying low. Sheffield is trying to be everywhere. She wants to try and keep that front runner position. But the question is 38 as far as she goes? Is the other 62% anybody but Mary? And there are a lot of people looking for someone to emerge as an alternative to Sheffield, and that hasn't really happened yet. So race is far from over, but there are a lot of people who are unsatisfied with their options. Guess what? These are your choices. You're going to have to pick one. There ain't going to be a white dude from Livonia writing his ass in this time.
Okay, Alan.
By the way, it's 38%, then 14% for Kinloch, then 9% for Craig, which pretty much was what Ed Sarpolis's poll in May reflect. The numbers were a little different, but the pecking order was the same. And as Mike says, it comes down to second place. And once the first and second candidates are there, I think it's more going to be an open race. But I think people are not totally over, as ML wrote in his column, people are generally underwhelmed by the selection here. And, I think the business community has supported Mary Sheffield a little bit, but they've been talking to James Craig. They're trying to figure out where they want to, put their money. And I wouldn't rule out James Craig only because I think he may not be going for the same voters that Mary Sheffield and Kinloch and some of the other people are going for. And so I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this race is not over. I think a lot of people, what I'm hearing, they're just waiting for the primary. And I think once you see who are going to be the top two all the way down to November, and then you start seeing more people engage. My concern is the turnout. I'm just very, very concerned about the turnout. Because if you look at, elections in the past and you look at the turnout anywhere from 9, 10, highest being 15, that's significant. That's scary. So the turnout, who gets that person out? And of course, Mary is in the lead. And then I think I agree, everyone else is vying for the number 2 spot. I think the number 2 spot, it's only maybe a couple of people who could land there, because let's be real about it. You got to have people and you got to have money, and you got to have both of those, not one and not anything that's out of that. So whoever has the money and the people, boots on the ground, to try to get to these Detroiters with a very low turnout, and we're trying to get the turnout higher.
Especially with the primary in August.
Yes.
I mean, what a terrible month to have an election for anything.
Yeah.
I think Mary Sheffield has a name recognition. She's in a seat that's able to promote herself. But people are taking shots at her. They're saying that, she doesn't show up to a lot of meetings, that she likes to show up for the ribbon cutting. That's sort of the narrative they're trying to project on her, as well as, Todd Perkins. And then I think James Craig during the debate up in Mackinac was trying to point out about her sitting on the Conservancy board, where, look, most of those positions, there were dozens and dozens of people on that board who did nothing, or was really in name only. But the way she handled it and said, well, I'm not taking any blame for that. She should have said, you know what, we should have been doing stuff differently. I was on the board. I should have, and then she says, Matt Cullen, who's the chairman of the board, who certainly should take some responsibility. And she said he should take no responsibility at all. And I think that resonated. And I think people saw that as a gotcha moment to try to capitalize on knocking her down a peg.
Well, what about... Okay,
no, I was going to say, add on to that. Yeah, I think that, she's in the number 1 spot, and not to discount anything you said, Alan. However, I just think that, she's going to be the most one to get the shots taken at her, because she's in the lead. And I think as we see it go on, because she can focus on cover those responses she had, but highlight the other things that she's been able to do as council president, as a partner with Duggan, and some of the things that's happening in Detroit. And then also what my plan is for Detroiters, the neighborhood, so we can stop saying there's 2 Detroits. Really is 1 Detroit. It's like it's 1 Michigan.
Well, I got a sort of a perspective on this, and ML may know where I'm coming from. When I did the Kilpatrick case, Reverend Sheffield was Kwame Kilpatrick's spiritual advisor, and I'm just wondering how far. And I always looked at him a little sideways, so I'm just wondering how far the apple falls from the tree. I don't trust her because I didn't trust him, because that's who was advising Kilpatrick spiritually. Are you kidding me?
But I don't want to discount, because I definitely respect you. You're right. You have personal, personal relationships with him, but just in a professional way, dealing with Council President Mary Sheffield, mine has been a positive experience. Everything that even my organization or even me being over my HOA, everything, I'm in District 5, but everything I've been able to ask and we've asked of her, her staff has been able to deliver. So time will tell, but I think that she's more of her own person. And it's unfair because I'm a daddy's girl and my dad's no longer here. But if I was in that spot, yes, my dad would advise me. Yes, it would. But good, I would be my own person as well, because I am the one that would be elected by the people. But would I listen? And all of my advisors and some influence, you can't help to, because that's your parent.
Mike, is the reason why Sheffield was advising Kilpatrick because Swaggart wasn't available?
Yeah, it's.
I don't know, man. I just think I just used to look at it and sort of shake my head, but that's just me.
We just want people to get out to vote and do their research. People got to get out and vote.
I mean, but there also has to be a motivation factor, don't
Yes.
you think, Beverly? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they have to
No,
get
here's the
excited
thing.
about this.
Now, maybe hold on, because I always, I was born and raised in Detroit, but of course my parents moved out to the suburbs at some point. But it's always been my understanding that the Black Baptist ministers deliver the vote in Detroit, particularly for mayor. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So maybe Mary's got she's got the upper hand from the standpoint that maybe she's going to get the support of the Black Baptist ministers in Detroit, which will take her across the finish line. So I don't know. Mel, what do you think?
Well, don't forget Solomon Kinlock's a pastor, and he has multiple churches and a large congregation.
Yes.
But I think the black pastors are a lot like the Catholic pastors I know, who are almost all white. They're very jealous of their flock and their influence. And if somebody says, boy, if I support this person, I'm going to lose some of my faithful, they may be reluctant to do that. On the other hand, there may be pastors out there who say, well, if we can get this guy in the Manugian mansion, we can get him off the pulpit. We can pull some of those parishioners over to our church.
There you go.
I don't know.
He got about 40,000 parishioners, about 40,000.
That's what he said. Now, some of them are in Genesee County. And as I think anybody who attends church in Detroit or has run for office in Detroit knows, there are a lot of people who pray in Detroit who don't stay in Detroit. So,
but they know people who can vote in Detroit who's still here in Detroit. That's the difference.
That's true. But speaking as someone who went to a lot of church, they didn't tell him to vote for old white Mike from the East Side. So we gotta work on that. But I do think at the same time I've said, and it's a reflection of what I've heard, that this field of candidates is underwhelming. When you think about it, it's actually a pretty high quality assortment of candidates. We have a former police chief. We have 2 city council members. We have a former city council president who's the CEO of a nonprofit. We have a successful attorney. That's a pretty good field, but people don't know them. None of them excite people. And Beverly hit on something that's going to decide everything. If turnout is more than 14%, I'll be surprised. And so the way you make the runoff is you got to get people. You got to identify your voters, you got to motivate them, and you've got to get them to vote. And there's this thing that campaigns do called the flush, which is basically once you've identified your supporters, you shift from trying to convert supporters to making sure your identified supporters go out and vote. And now with early voting, that flush, which used to happen the last couple of days or the last week of a campaign, may be going on as early as July. Because if you I can't tell you how many people who told me they supported me for city council but didn't actually go out and vote for me. And that's heartbreaking to a candidate. And I think most of these folks are savvy enough to know if you've told me you like me, I got to make sure that you go vote. And the most organized campaign is the one that's going to win.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Forget the polls. Answering a phone is easy. Getting your ass to fill out a ballot, that takes a little more effort.
Yes.
Not much, but more.
It does.
So Florida higher education is not the only state where we've got some issues with the boards of trustees. It looks like Brenda Tracy is suing the board of trustees at Michigan State University for allegedly mishandling her sexual harassment case with former MSU football player Mel Tucker. She's citing that particularly trustees Rima Vassar and Dennis Deno violated their legal and ethical responsibilities by perhaps making her identity no longer confidential. ML, what are you hearing about this case? You think it's got legs?
Well, Mel Tucker definitely mishandled himself. Let's put it that way. What happens next? I'm not fully versed in who said what to whom, but Ms. Tracy definitely was not done right by. But in terms of, what the university's exposures on this, I'll defer to counsel on this one. But I much prefer talking about the idiots in Ann Arbor than the idiots in East Lansing. Can we get back to that, please?
Idiots, wait a minute. Go green, go white.
The academic term is done.
Good point.
Let it. All right. Last item. The city of Tulsa, Oklahoma has announced that they are looking into reparations for the 1921 Black Wall Street race massacre that occurred in that city, which then served essentially as a template for a similar destruction in so many other successful Black neighborhoods across the United States. I thought that the timing was really interesting for this, given the political climate in the country. And of course, the very high likelihood that the Trump administration is going to have something to say about it. What do you say about what Tulsa is doing right now?
I think Tulsa's taking responsibility. Long overdue, 100 years too late. But my God, this is, to me, this is kind of breathtaking in what they're doing. They're a present government in Oklahoma, a mayor, or I think it is was saying something happened a long time ago, and we're still feeling it. People are still hurt. There's no closure. And I think what he's trying to do is say, we acknowledge the loss. We will compensate you as best as money can do and try to close this wound and heal. I think it's very positive, and I hope that the Trump administration doesn't get in the way, because this is not affirmative action for white people, which is what the Trump administration prefers.
Right.
All right.
He's right.
With that,
long overdue.
All right.
So I want to play a little, just sort of a little bit of a non sequitur, but it's about the media, sort of giving a snapshot of Trump and the media, how they're opening up the gates for more media.
Today, this seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. We have an individual in our new media seat today. His name is Tim Pool.
Okay, all right. Lovely to meet you, Tim Pool. Let's hear him hold this administration's feet to the fire.
Many of the news organizations that are represented in this room have marched in lockstep on false narratives, such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland Man hoax.
Now that's a great question. Everyone in this room sucks. Do you care to comment? This can be deceiving. If he has White House credentials, I'm sure he brings the dignified, well-sourced positions that we expect from qualified journalists.
You've got stories of migrants grilling cats and slaughtering mammals in the street. The left are like, women only get paid 73 cents on the dollar for what a man makes. But at the same time, you have this trend of ladies' nights where at bars, women get discounts when they buy drinks. So spare me, dude.
He's the guy that they discovered was getting money from the Russians, wasn't he? He's one of them. There were several of them.
Where's the new White House correspondent who criticized Zelensky for not wearing a suit? Why isn't he tearing that guy?
Yeah, I know.
That dude looks like he should be putting
that
a shopping cart out of an Aldi parking lot to pick up some cans.
That's stupid.
All the way down to the knit hat. I mean, that's
the stupid beanie that he wears is like his trademark. And there's a famous picture of him in a suit, standing like poolside at Mar-a-Lago with that fucking beanie on, which I just find hilarious and tragic at the same time. I mean,
but let's go back to getting cheap drinks for women, and it is
know,
really
I mean,
true. If we got more cheap drinks, if we had more ladies' nights, maybe I would just shut up and vote for Republicans. I mean, you could try.
Well, if it wasn't for cheap
the
drinks,
free
that guy would
rupee
still be
in
a virgin.
every glass.
You really can't make this shit
You
up.
can't make this up. This is
You can't make
it up. We've all heard it. Every woman here has heard that before.
And I have to tell you also, Alan, that is, as the standards of that new tradition that Carolyn Levitt is doing, that is a hard-hitting Mike Wallace question compared to some of the ones that I've heard that came after him. I think he was the first one. He and whoever was sitting next to him were like the first ones to do that. But there was one where this guy looks like he's in some kind of cosplay. He's in this weird outfit, and he asks this question with this great drama, and it was. I wish I had saved it for you because I'm sure you would have loved
Nancy,
it.
didn't she announce that she's no longer going to wear her cross because Jon Stewart made fun of it?
Is it? I think she's not wearing it because it's starting to burn her flesh.
Well, Jon Stewart said it was a Pinocchio cross, and every time she lied, it got bigger.
It got bigger.
Yeah. So I want to be clear. I'm not criticizing that guy for the way he dresses, but I am saying the new media, who seems to be very critical of the way other people dress. Maybe somebody should be calling him out, because if it's a big deal when a guy whose country has been under assault for 3 years doesn't have a tie,
right?
Maybe you want to jump on this cat for not finding a collar.
Well, that was something that
of course he's under assault, right? Because
always...
women may make $1 an hour like men do, So he's really the guy who's under assault, because the minute women are equal, he's fit.
Incel. Yeah.
Right.
And
it's really sad though, because we're hitting a really low mark when we really can't tell whether this is SNL or this is real. Really, we're hitting it low. You don't know if that's a snit or if this really happened.
What sewer did they drag this punk from? I mean, that's
Well, and I can remember at least half a dozen cases over the years where some Republican got a column out of somebody wearing the wrong thing to the White House. And I think at one point there was a dust up over the women of some Olympic team, like maybe volleyball or something, that were gold medalists, and they were invited to the White House, and some of them wore flip-flops with their dresses, and it was like, oh, this guy was falling, and of course, Obama wore a tan suit. Oh, we can't have that. God spare us, Peggy Noonan. I remember how deeply respectful Ronald Reagan was of the White House, and he never even entered his office if he wasn't wearing a suit and a tie, and, blah, 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 and all this bullshit. And it's like, and then they come up with this. So
did somebody tell Trump that your tie doesn't hang 5 inches below your belt?
He thinks it makes him look skinnier.
Nothing makes him look skinnier.
One of my favorite signs from the April 5th march was this little girl walking with a sign that said, I too am 6'3" and 240 pounds.
Signs are the best part of those marches, I tell you.
Right. Alan, why don't we go to our last segment?
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Hey, Robert.
Okay. Mike, why don't we start with you?
Okay, Schmuck of the Week. Schmuck of the Week. How we're
at?
Okay. So my Schmuck of the Week is the chief punk of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, the white evangelical hypocrite, who took reporters into the congressional prayer room for a photo op. So, where he bragged about his prayer life and all this other bullshit. So I guess my question is, what was this piece of shit praying for? How many, was he praying how he can get 16 million people off of Medicaid, or how he could deprive our poorest children of food? Okay, so that's my Schmuck of the Week. And by the way, Jesus warned us about hypocrites that love to pray in public. That's my Schmuck of the Week.
There we go. Beverly.
Yes, okay. I totally 100% agree with Mike. That was one of my smokes, but I'm just going to keep it really short because I'm finally recovering from a cold that I got on the island, so I don't want my pressure to go up. I'm just going to say Elon Musk, and you can just go on. Move on to the next. Elon Musk is my Schmuck of the Week.
And which island was that, Beverly?
Bella. But no, not
Well, welcome back to the country.
Yeah.
All right. ML.
I'm going to say the trustees of the University of Florida, because you've got a president who will do whatever you tell him to do, who lets your athletic department do whatever the hell he wants, pretends that when they break the rules, they didn't break the rules, gets down on his knees for the athletic director, and you're an SEC school. This guy was sent from heaven, and you rejected him. That makes you my schmuck of the week.
All right. Barb.
I am going to say FEMA Chief David Richardson, who is the head of FEMA, and he told us he was not that the U.S. had a hurricane season. If you live in Florida, if you live anywhere where there is any kind of, if you live in Oklahoma and it's tornado season, did anybody tell them that? It's amusing, but it's also terrifying because people will die from these things. People that I have friends that live in Missouri right now who are terrified because these storms are coming through and they don't know whether to hide in the basement. We used to get regular alerts. I think this is the caliber of people that are being brought to the government, and it's damn scary. So David Richardson, I hope he knows now.
Yep.
Well,
he said he was making a joke.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, everybody jokes about hurricanes in Florida.
Well, Barb, I don't know if you're using it, but the Forewarn weather app from WDIV, not too shabby. It helped me avoid the last 6.0 earthquake that hit Oakland and Macomb County. So, something.
When you get rid of everybody at NOAA, maybe nobody's there to tell them it's hurricane season.
And you'd figure as religiously woke as this administration is, ML, they actually saved one organization called NOAA.
Yeah, or twos.
Right.
Save twos.
Oh, but in twos, that's right.
Yeah.
You have to do it in pairs. Okay, Joel.
I'm going to go with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's easy, low-hanging fruit. But the fact that she went irate about the bill she voted for and thought she was bamboozled, as well as many other Republicans, she's an idiot. And every time she speaks and says shit like this, she's an idiot. So she's my schmuck. The Republicans who didn't read the bill that they passed, who didn't go through any, had no knowledge of what they were doing, are finding that the bill is going to cut their constituents' benefits. This is just insane. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're a fucking idiot. You're a schmuck. So there you go.
Here. For a minute there, I thought you were making an allusion to her fitness trainer. But anyway. All right. Nancy.
Oh, U.S. Representative Ro Khanna, R. California.
D. California.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. D. California. I'm sorry. I saw his initial and whatever. D. California, who responded to the Trump-Musk feud by immediately dropping to his knees and offering a tongue bath to Elon Musk. Come over to the Democratic Party. We have far more, our principles are far more in line with yours. Well, first of all, number one, what are Elon Musk's principles other than, white supremacy, weird childbearing, and, spreading his semen like, bird seed. And I mean, and it's like, and if there's one thing that the Democratic Party has a problem with these days, it's like convincing voters that we stand for something, right? So you don't immediately embrace like the Dark Lord and say he's on our side just because he has a fat wallet and a drug-addled brain. So it's like, if you're going to stand for anything, it's got to be that Elon Musk has to be a man without a country politically. So, but not, they say in California, he's the California equivalent of Chuck Schumer, just a real, dork. He should be primaried. So, yeah.
So Nancy, do you object to Elon naming his kids or giving them names that are VIN numbers?
Well, it's one way to keep track of them, sure. But I think he has 14 now. 14 children by 6 different women at this point.
And he wants to have all his baby mamas in the same house with the kids.
Well, I think he's trying to work a compound kind of deal, like something out of the old Mormon church. But
well, I guess he's moved base of operations to Austin. He should have gone to Waco and seen if the old Branch Davidian compound is still available there.
I keep checking my spam email, and there's all of these emails from Elon asking if I want to be his next one. I have to send it back.
Oh,
sorry, the kitchen is closed on that particular one.
Anyway, yet somehow, Nancy, you don't block the caller. Alan.
I'm going to pick Hamtramck Mayor Amir Ghalib, who switched from being a Democrat to Republican and was all in with Trump. He's now being nominated for the ambassador to Kuwait. And now Trump has passed, the ban now on a number of Muslim countries, including his home country, Yemen, and he's remaining silent. Sam Robinson, a blogger, has reached out to him, saying, I've reached out to him, asked what he thinks about it, and there's been no response. So that's my
good one.
And I
have a lot going on there.
The DeVos family for backing John James, trying to influence the Republicans here in Michigan, pouring a shitload of money into John James, who's highly.
I mean, that's their right. I wish they'd picked a better Republican than the emptiest suit, currently in the talk about a guy who needs. Well, never mind.
He went to
So I think I'm going to have to go with 2 schmucks this week, if you don't mind. One to make up for last week. One is Republican Senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, who, upon hearing that there is a Gaza flotilla for bringing much-needed humanitarian aid to Gaza, on board are not only climate change activist Greta Thunberg, but also somebody from Game of Thrones, apparently. Upon hearing this, he said, well, I hope Greta and her friends can swim, alluding to the idea, maybe even goading on the Israeli army attacking and sinking said flotilla. The other schmuck is, and you'll like this one, Mike and ML, is the University of Michigan. The British newspaper, The Guardian, has reported that U of M has been using a private investigation firm to surveil pro-Palestinian students on campus, eavesdropping on them, sitting in close to them in cafes. One of them, when confronted, even faked a disability, saying, "Nope, I'm not an investigator. I'm disabled." But the fact that the university has spent
signing.
It's like the old Woody Woodpecker thing. What are you doing? Rockabye Baby and Semaphore. But the fact that the university spent somewhere close to $800,000 on hiring a private company, I believe it's Detroit City Shield, to go and surveil students. I'm not even sure if the university did that in the 60s when SDS was very prominent on campus. But it seems as though calls to U of M Regent Jordan Acker have gone unreplied. But this is the way that universities are now acting towards students.
Yeah, the university did respond and say it's our obligation to make sure that everybody's safe. So they didn't deny it, but they basically.
They seem not to do much about the people who commit sexual assault on campus with as much of a budget, but
Right.
I used to know a repo man with a prosthetic leg, and he used that to great advantage. He said, "I'd get my foot in the door, they'd try to slam it." He's like, "You can do that all day, lady. I can't feel any of it."
Oh, goodness. Well, no wonder you don't block the callers from Elon Musk. I mean,
you never know who you're going to turn out. Yeah,
you never know who you're going to meet. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of another terrific The Week That Was. Thank you, Beverly Watts. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Mike Rataj. Thank you, Elrick. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And thank you, and with the last word always, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.